Hello there, welcome to our next instalment of A Year of Beer. This is the Easter episode, and what we've got this week are a couple of very nice fruit beers, Belgian fruit beers that work very, very well with chocolate. They're two different beers. Now you might think at first glance they're exactly the same. What we have, the original cherry beer here from Liefman's, a very sort of famous family-owned brewery, and then a very similar cherry beer done in exactly the same way from the Van Honsebroek brewery. And what they are, rather than being spontaneously fermenting fairly light fruit beers, they're based on a Flemish brown ale, which gives them a little bit more body and a bit more flavour than a regular lambic. I love taking these papers off because it's such an iconic, lovely naked bottle underneath it. And what we're going to do is we're going to whip these open. Now, at the time of recording this blog, sadly Liefman's brewery is in administration. It's not currently producing beer, but there we go, lovely. It seems as though Liefman's brewery are going to, or have stopped production. It seems likely that they'll be bought out by the Duvel brewery, Mortgat, which is probably a good thing. Given let's do the same. Let's get the bottle completely naked, shall we? Put those down there. Well, that's a crown cap. Well, that's a surprise. I thought it would be a cork. We'll get the old Leatherman on it there. So what we have, we've got two beers produced in exactly the same way. They're fermented using cultured yeast. They're not the wild, naturally fermenting lambics. We're going to come to those in a couple of weeks. But they're produced using multi-strain yeasts, probably including Brettanomyces, which gives a real kind of complexity and what's classically called a horse blanket aroma. It's slightly fusty, slightly stuffy. It's not altogether pleasant, but it's one of those things that in small amounts adds interest and complexity. And so the base beer is then taken and macerated with whole griot, whole sour cherries, or Kriek, which is the Flemish word for it. And what I'm curious to see really, they've both been packaged in exactly the same way. They're broadly speaking, the same beer. They're a Flemish brown ale with macerated cherries. I'm just curious to see if there's any difference between them. So first of all, the Liefman's beer, big kind of slightly tart, earthy cherries, obviously. It's a lovely big burst of kind of almost medicinal sour cherry on the tongue. Now the Van Honsebroek version. Yeah, that's somehow slightly more kind of phenolic and medicinal. A little bit sweeter. I'm sure there's no artificial sweetening involved, but the Liefman's version has a slightly kind of tartar, winey complexity to it. The Van Honsebroek version is maybe a little lighter, sweeter and cleaner. Now, fabulously, because it's Easter, what we have, the Easter Bunny has brought me this year some lovely, very delicately packaged chocolate truffles from Anthony's Patisserie in Leeds. And the fantastic thing, cherry beer and chocolate is a match made in heaven. We held a beer tasting the other evening for about 40 people, and you always get people who say, oh, I don't really like beer. And the last beer of the evening was a cherry beer paired with some chocolate, and what everybody said was, I don't like cherry beer and I'm not crazy about chocolate, but the two together are a fantastic, fantastic match. That's a really good chocolate truffle. And two together, the sweetness and the sourness, really outstanding. Really lovely. Well, I think you know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the evening. Thanks for stopping by. And see you next time. Cheers.